my question is, I can resonate with your talk about the freedom, but I need to know, how does the love and compassion integrate with this freedom? Because in my life, I feel I feel somewhere it's kind of disconnected, disconnected in the sense, people who loves me, and and the people whom I love, there is kind of disconnection. I think something is off somewhere. I mean, I am not able to give. I am not able to connect with them. I am somewhere not able to feel that compassion for them. Giving love or to be loved, both ways, there is some kind of disconnection.
Yeah.
When I am with when I am with myself, when I am in aloneness, there is no problem. In my freedom, there is no problem. Everything is well and fine. Everything goes well. But when I try to connect with others.
Yeah.
It applies for anyone, like my family member, like towards children. The love I felt before towards children, that that I am not able to feel now. I feel there
Yeah.
is somewhere kind of disconnection. And
Uh,
I saw your video of octave, where you explain that in fifth octave, after the awakening, the, we you said that uh, after that the awakening, we are somehow not able to feel that compassion like before.
yeah.
I mean, we find it harder to integrate
Yeah.
with that things.
Yeah.
So I need your guidance on this.
Okay. So, everything that you said is so it's so natural. Like I've been through everything that you just shared. And you're right to use the octave map to identify that challenge after the fifth, or in the fifth octave, where you somehow have like less compassion. There's like a stage where there's like less compassion than before. The reason for that is because before, you could say we're in unconscious ignorance, right? We don't know, we don't know. And in the fifth, and which means then that we can much more easily, you could say, accidentally slip into love, right? There's actually less barriers before, just like there are in children, for example, because we're not even conscious of when we're being separate. So after the fifth octave, it is as though we become conscious of our ignorance. We have like this awakened ignorance. And what happens is, when we see other people, it reminds us of our separation. Before, they didn't remind us because we didn't even know there was separation. It was an automated thing. But then after our first glimpse in the fifth octave, people remind us of separation. So this is why you find it hard. Knowing that you're infinite does not mean you're going to be a loving being. Does not mean that. Having a realization of your true nature does not equate to having capacity for compassion and love. That's a realization to come to. The the that which So your question was, how do you reconcile knowing that I'm infinite, but then still not seeming to have access to this love that you would normally expect to come with that, right? The reason it doesn't come with that is because we are still yet to fully surrender our individual identity. So when I was telling you about my path, not necessarily you, Bristi, but in the past, the first only thing that happened, so after that experience, I had chronic psychosis and fear of death. Every single day, I thought every single thing was going to kill me. That was me holding on to my individual identity. And because there was nothing left in my life, there was no other distraction. I didn't have, I mean, I had family, but they were all doing their own thing. I didn't have kids. You know, I didn't have any passion, any goals in life. The only thing there was this. So there was nothing to cover this chronic fear of death, which was literally me holding on to my individual identity. So the knowing that we're infinite doesn't mean that we are yet willing to accept the implications of that. That's a key thing to understand. Knowing what I am does not mean I am yet ready to accept the implications of that. And we can very well easily know what we are, be able to articulate it perfectly, right? And look wise, yet still not really accept the implications of the wisdom we're sharing. That is a huge wake-up call. So when we know ourselves to be infinite, it doesn't mean we're yet ready to accept the implications of that. When we are, it is when we are willing to face the ultimate death. That's really what it's about. And it sounds serious, but it's not as serious as, I mean, it's kind of serious, but it's kind of not. It is how willing, and this is a fifth octave thing, actually. So a fifth octave thing is a serious devotion. In the fifth octave is a serious devotion to God. Mastering the fifth octave is a serious devotion to God or to something outside. You could, whether you call it God or our higher self, in the fifth octave, that is born. That is the bonus of the fifth. That's the mastery of the fifth octave. And most people move from the fifth octave without mastering that. And it sounds paradoxical to move from the fifth octave and to still have like a problem with the fifth octave. You've got to see it as like you have to develop. There's developmental stages. So so if you're learning tennis, for example, you can like you can get to a really high rank but not master a lot of fundamentals. You can just have really good serves, right? You could serve, and every time that you serve, and then you could have really good serves, and then like a really good like backhand, for example, and then be terrible on the forehand. But because you're really good at serves, it means you win every point that you serve, right? Which means guaranteed win 100% of the time every time you serve. And then because you've got a really good backhand, you nudge the percentage by about 5%. So you guaranteed to win 55% of the time. You can get to a very high level winning 55% of the time. But when you get to the really high levels, you're gonna get toasted. Why? Because the people at the really high levels mastered the beginning level stuff. They really cared. They didn't just want to win, they really cared. They mastered the basics. So now you feel like, well, I'm on top of the world. I'm a high rank in tennis and I'm winning all these games, and all of a sudden now I suck, right? It's because we skipped these very important fundamentals that then in a later time, Mark, I noticed you put your hand down. I want to come to you. That at a later time, we realize, oh, this was actually important. So the octaves map is very similar. In the fifth octave, it is necessary to be capable of developing a true selfless devotion to God. And then some people say, but God's not outside me. How could I ever do that? It doesn't make sense. Yes, I get that. But the energy has to be created of being willing to die for God, being willing to die for truth, being willing to die for love. What does that mean? It means that if push came to shove, I would die for love, I would die for truth. That willingness is true devotion, which is a fifth octave mastery. So if we don't master it if we move on from the fifth and we go to the seventh and we realize, oh, my true nature is infinite, it doesn't make a difference, because to leave the seventh octave requires us to completely surrender all individuality, is to completely surrender the individual identity. Without developing a serious devotion to something beyond ourself, which basically means to truly devote to God, which is to truly devote to ourselves, which means to be willing to die unto oneself, we won't want to do it. So what that looks like in a practical sense is I am not yet willing to accept the implications of it. So you could quite literally be in the seventh octave, understand your true nature, but you're not willing to accept the implications because you still haven't yet fully, you could say, you haven't fully come to terms with it. You haven't fully come to terms with something beyond yourself. It's still being surface level. So this is why you can see there are a lot of teachers who can speak very dryly. It feels very dry. It feels very bypassing, and there's this sense that there's a lack of love in the juice. You know what I mean? There's this sense there's a lack of compassion in the juice. The reason there's a lack of compassion is because compassion is the intelligence to master all the octaves. So compassion for a fourth octave, when I say a fourth octave person, I mean someone who primarily operates in the fourth octave, which means someone who primarily operates in schools, in just any normal job, and lives that day to day, right? So think of it like this: a primary school teacher is someone who lives in the fourth octave. It's not like they're at that level. They could be on all the octaves, but you primarily live there because that's your job, is to interact in that way with the world. So a primary school teacher is someone who resonates in the fourth octave. Compassion for the primary school teacher looks like understanding children are in the third octave. Now, a school teacher is not going to verbalize it like this, but this is basically how it is. Compassion looks like, I understand this child hasn't been, you could say, taught properly by their parents. So they're a little bit nasty to the other kids in school, or the kid's a bit rude, maybe because they're having a hard time at home. What it looks like is you give a level of understanding that mitigates the actions of another octave level because you understand that octave. So you can literally, it's like dropping the octave specifically to communicate to someone on a lower octave so that they get you. That's what compassion is. So if you're on the, you could even do that with the from the fourth to the third octave, right? If you're speaking to an artist and you're in the fourth octave and you want to communicate to an artist, you can't look at the art and be like, I don't like red. So red is not, this is very fourth octave thinking, logic, reason. Create third octave is very creative, poetic. It's intuitive. It's full creation mode, you know? But so if you communicate with someone who's in the fourth octave to someone's reviewing someone's art in the third, it looks like you don't get it, right? You don't resonate with it. So if you want to resonate with art, you've got to go to the third octave. So, and that's compassion. That's what compassion is, the intelligence to live in all dimensions. So now that we've established that, when you're in the fifth octave, there is a stage of reluctancy to want to resonate with the other octaves. You see? So that's what happens. "Oh, I don't want small talk anymore. Oh, what are they talking about? They're gossiping. They're doing this. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, this he keeps talking to me about the weather. How boring." It's like this lack of ability to resonate on other levels. So when you surrender, you could say, the individual identity, you have no problem which octave you resonate on because you connect with everyone. You love everyone. So if someone wants to talk to you about the weather, you want to talk about the weather. If someone wants to talk to you about Lego, you want to talk and build Lego. Now, obviously, there's going to be things you don't necessarily want to do at some point. So you've got to respect that. But on an ultimate level, you will want what everybody else wants. You see? On the highest level. Of course, if someone wants to harm themselves, you don't just condone harming themselves, right? But they don't, no one really wants to harm themselves. They want happiness, right? So you're going to do what it takes to actually prevent harm on that level. So the point I'm making is that love and compassion, they come in with the ability to accept the implications of being infinite. That's when they're fully actualized. You can find love and compassion before that, like what happened with me. But the problem was when I inevitably, you have to awaken the intellect. I lost that love and compassion. I lost that ability, that juice within myself, because it was, you could say, like nulled and dulled by my intellectual understanding, which then created new concepts provisionally. And then I identified with those concepts, like I am consciousness, I am this. I created this subtle state, and I thought I had to go to the state. I need to be in my being of this state. And it was like, it was all kind of an illusion. And the minute I let go of even that and let go of again, and eventually love comes from you without you having to try. You see, it just there's no moment where you there's no one moment where you surrender individuality. It it can be recreated in a moment, which is why we have to awaken the intellect. You can recreate separation at any moment unless the intellect has been fully sufficiently, you could say, integrated and awoken. So that would be the answer: to accept the implications. Most people can spend a long time not accepting the implications of their understanding.
Yeah, I got it. Yes, I have an image like, oh, I am somehow arrogant. I have to talk with some sort of people. I cannot have conversation with the common people, I could say. Yeah, I also observed this kind of things where I had grouped people, like I cannot talk with them. I should talk with some certain kind of people. Yeah, what you have said completely resonates with me. I got
Thank you.
it. Yeah, thank you.